Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with my friend Jason Rorie, and he and I are going to talk today about extra special referral relationships that actually go to another level. Jason, thanks for joining me. Would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Jason Rorie. I'm the founder and CEO of Triad Infosec. I'm a 30-year veteran in the tech and security space, and our company really specializes in cyber leadership, ongoing cyber risk management, and cyber compliance.
Thank you so much. So in this series, Jason, we've heard stories of people who started out with transactional business relationships, referrals that became regular, people that really became friends. We've talked about how it's important to show a little bit about yourself, that when you do business together a lot, you actually start to know a little bit of personal stuff about each other. Your relationship goes to another level. I wanted to interview you today because I have watched you over the last 18 months or so that we've known each other. I've watched you create new things and really given me a way of thinking about how people can collaborate inside the Good Humans Growth Network that not everybody is understanding yet. So would you talk a little bit about your supposed competitors and how you ended up creating something altogether different?
All about being innovative, I guess. So previous to Triad, I started and built an IT managed service provider, and I ran that company for 16 years before making my exit a couple of years ago. So I know that side of the tech industry, that type of business model very, very well. So when I joined Tech Collab and met other IT managed service providers, I knew their business model really well. And I knew one of the gaps that they traditionally have with their clients is exactly what Triad does now. So I knew that we weren't competitors, but they don't necessarily know.
Right.
Or tech is a very competitive space. So a lot of business owners, they hold their cards close to their chest. They don't want to open up too much. And if you're in the tech industry in one form or fashion, you may be seen as a competitor. You just right out of the gate. But luckily there's some really great people in Tech Collab and part of the Good Human Growth Network in general. So through having these conversations, I felt that they were open to learning more about what we did, even though I used to be a quote unquote competitor, but I am no longer. So really through those conversations of getting them to understand exactly what Triad does and where we fit in from a risk management and compliance standpoint, then they realized, okay, that truly is something that we don't do, but I'm starting to see the value that it would bring to our clients. And they need those services. Regulations and legislation are getting passed down more and more, and it's going to be even worse in a few years in the future, right? So understanding policy, procedure, insurance, legal contracts, really that side of cyber is becoming more and more important, in addition to the medical side where they excel. So if you put both of us together as a team, we do bring a lot more value to the client collectively. And with them owning the relationship with the client, it really helps them kind of stand out, and they bring more value to the client. But for them, if you think about it from a business perspective, it really not only strengthens that relationship, but makes that client a little stickier, to use the term in our industry, and really increases that overall kind of worth of the client as far as the relationship goes. So it really makes sense. And, for us, as we talked more about it, we thought, what if we went beyond the traditional referral process? It's like, I know someone, you introduced me on, and just kind of passing contact information back and forth. Well, if we take it a step further, what if we take what I do, bundle it with what you do, and as you go through and you sell IT support and management services, there's a component, there's a line item in your package that kind of compensates for that gap in the policy and the procedure in the insurance. So as you sell those moving forward, that client is going to get that additional value right out of the gate without having to make a referral. And then it's advantageous for everybody, and we all win.
So for our audience, when they're thinking about whatever industry they're in, they could be a marketing agency, or they could be a consultancy or even a product company where another product's adjacent to that product. What you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is you had this point in time where you realized, well, giving referrals or sharing clients, let me introduce you to my friend Jason, then you're alongside them after they've already closed a piece of work. That was the first step that seemed evident to everyone. And pretty much right away you said, we want more than that. Let's reduce friction for the buyer by actually embedding someone else in what I sell.
Yes.
Was that something everybody came to quickly?
Oh, no. I mean, that takes, a good bit of getting used to, because you have to build that relationship, because it's like a referral, but it's deeper. I mean, if you're going to be a strategic partner and truly embed them into your delivery model, that trust and that relationship really has to be there.
So let's give people a roadmap for that, Jason. Like, try to remember, how many meetings do you think you had where you got to know each other, you talked about clients, you modeled what it might look like. Maybe you even did pass some referrals back and forth before you took that step to embed. But give us a little idea. We're talking about months. Was it 12 times? Was it 25 times? What did that look like? Because we want people to understand, number one, what does it take? And number two, is it worth it?
I mean, it did take some time, to be fully transparent. I would say it was at least 6 or 7 months in the making, and that's minimum once a month. And mainly those meetings were at Tech Collab or other Growth Human Network events. So you got to have that ongoing touch point where, I was able to help grow this relationship, but then having meetings outside of that, our one-on-ones, as we began getting comfortable with just doing the traditional referral. But all of those conversations fueled that deeper involvement. What about if we tried this? What about this? What if we brought someone else in and really strengthened the package and just really, taking these building blocks? So again, instead of having to say, well, let me introduce you to this person, knowing the client needs it. So why not give it to them up front and just build it in? And so when you sell a deal, part of that onboarding, or the way that we've had it designed to work, part of the onboarding is, okay, this next meeting, I'm going to bring in our Office 365 expert to make sure that your email is secured appropriately. Then the next meeting will be the compliance onboarding. We'll talk about policy, procedure, insurance, training, and all of that is just fronted by the managed service provider. So, he's controlling the relationship. It's just part of the typical process at that point.
So you had to meet together, you had to build trust, and then you actually had to map what that client experience would be like with you all integrated. Literally, month one, we'll do this, month two, will look like this, and you actually then can give the client a roadmap and say, we're actually a guide. Collectively, we're a guide in this process, and this is what that roadmap would look like.
That's right.
Jason, what would make someone scared about doing this? Like, whether they were voiced objections or they were just in your head or someone else's head, like, what, through that experience, what could you share with our audience that would be the obstacles you have to overcome to get to such a beautiful outcome?
It just boils down to trust and understanding that my business is different from your business, even though they are very closely related. And again, it kind of goes back to that competition, but that's a trust factor. You work hard. And it takes a lot of time and in some cases a lot of money to market yourself, build a reputation, to gain clients. And the last thing you want to do is jeopardize that relationship by introducing them to someone that could potentially displace you. So that's the big concern is, well, I need to make sure that you're not going to try to, solicit or poach that client if I introduce you to them. So you have to meet that often. You have to build that relationship over time and be able to, between yourselves, depending if it's just, between two people or three, depending on how many people are forming this partnership, that those clear lines are drawn in the sand to say, look, I'm not going to step on your toes. You don't step on mine. If we come together and we do this right, it's going to be a really beautiful thing, because I'll get a piece of the business. But really at the end of the day, and what's most important to me is the client in our industry, they become more secure as a result of this partnership. And that's the end game, is the resiliency for the client.
So let me make this be my last question around this idea. There's this idea of someone's listening and they want these kind of relationships, and they're racking their brain thinking, who might be interested in this with me? I want to turn that on its head and ask, what are the attributes of what you look for that are good human attributes that tell you that someone is trustworthy and that you can continue to pursue, right? You're kind of checking a list in your mind from all your business experiences, saying, did they do this? Did they do this? Did they do this? So clearly not going to embarrass you. You already respect their brand, right? Some general decorum that way, right? What else? What else have you gleaned that are sort of your partnership secrets?
That's a good question. It is the trust. And I mean, it is also the brand. I think it's a culture fit. Like-minded people who are running similar businesses, very complementary. You want to kind of be sure that you can operate on the same level, if that makes sense. And, kind of people cut from the same cloth. You want to do right by each other. You don't want to step on each other's toes. You want to ultimately take care of your customer, because that's priority number one. And just people that fall in line with that, they have the integrity not to do anything bad. They understand the guidelines and the guardrails of the partnership, and just build off that, and just everybody understands. And if you're of the same professional level, then it's easier to have those conversations and move things down the road for the client a little bit quicker. Now, if you have 2 or 3 partners involved, you kind of have to move at the same speed so things don't, the customer can start receiving that value in the time frame that they should. So that's trust, it's integrity, it's just dealing with good people. First off, step number one is that person even willing to entertain a conversation like this and partner? And if they're not, if they're kind of standoffish, that may not be the best partner for you. So it's just looking for those that are open to do something innovative, do something a little bit different. And if everybody can win out of it, then it could be a really good thing.
What this call's done for me, Jason, has reminded me that I become impatient. Like, I have a real futuristic mindset, and I become impatient. And as you've been talking, I've been listening and thinking that you actually want something that takes 6, 9, 12 months of many conversations to give there to be time to see, do they uphold what they said they would do when we come back to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Right. What do I have time to do some diligence about their clients? And the time only helps because you have more proof. You have the social proof that you want to keep taking every step. It's like when you're dating someone, right? You just keep moving forward because, like, are we still saying yes? Are we still saying yes? Are we still saying yes?
Yeah.
And it actually is I think, a useful analogy, because why would we go to all this trouble to create sell-through offers where other people are selling your services, which is what you've built here? Why would you want to do that for a short-term outcome? You're talking about months in the making for years of enjoyment.
Yeah. Oh.
And so we don't want to be too impatient, because that's the thing about building, just like any real friendship in a social network. It's going to take some time to get to that level of trust that you really want.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you don't want to move too fast, because if you haven't really validated the relationship and know that person is going to be there when you need to bring them in, you're jeopardizing your reputation in a sense. And, I have moved too fast in the past in trying to do partnerships where it seemed like everything was in line and we were kind of good to go, right? But when it came time for me to get that partner in front of a client, I didn't hear from them. Yeah. Oh. So, but maybe I didn't give it enough time. So that's why I take a step back and say, okay, let's move it a little bit slower and really vet, these people out and build those relationships. So when I pick up my phone, they're going to be on the other end and ready to go.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jason, for this. I think your examples have illustrated that many people think of something called a networking or referral group, and they think of it still quite transactionally, like lead for lead, email intro, things like that. That's how relationships start. And you've given us an example of what they can evolve into, which I think many people want. They just don't know how to get there. Yeah. So this is a modeling, an example of that. And you can find Jason all over LinkedIn. You'll be able to find those in our show notes and find those in our comments, in our posts, so that you can build a relationship with him, learn from him, and contact him about all of your questions about cyber compliance. He's your man for that. So, Jason, thanks so much for today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining our podcast today. I know you enjoyed the interview with Jason, and please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.